What's up and welcome back everybody, it's your boy Blue Inferno, and in today's video I'm going to give you a breakdown of all the different archetypes available to the fighter here in the game Dark and Darker. For those of you who just want to skip to the archetypes or are looking for a specific one, I left timestamps in the video below so you can skip to whatever you're looking for. For anyone who wants the full rundown, just sit back and enjoy the ride. First things first, I think I need to define what an archetype is, and how it's not technically a build, and why I felt I should add a new definition to an already extremely complicated game. And ironically, the reason is to help simplify the game for new players, because the classes and builds can get extremely complicated, as well as to give a fresh perspective to experienced players. So this is how it works, or at least how I see it. There are a truly astounding quantity of details involved in a fully developed class build. Let me prove it to you. We've got class choice, perks, skills, items with intrinsic stats, weapon of choice, secondary weapon of choice, throwables, enchantments on utility slots, consumables, spells, preferred team composition, playstyle, enchantments on armor slots, ideal maps, ideal opponents, enchantments on weapons. I'm going to stop there, but I think I proved my point. I noticed this because over the past couple of days, I've set out to write a script fully detailing the 3 most common warlock builds, and no matter how I wrote the script, I knew there was no way to keep it short and sweet for a new player. And in my thought experiment of trying to specifically define these builds for other people, I realized that all of the builds had a massive amount of overlapping factors, and if I could just find a way to define that concept in a simple way, then I could explain it to a new player in a way that they can use the information immediately. So I came up with the idea of an archetype. If we were to look at a build as including all of these different factors, and instead we were to just limit it down to these 2 things, then we'd have an archetype instead of a build. In short, an archetype is the foundation to a build. So in effect, you as a player can know all of the available archetypes from me in this video, so you can immediately start making use of the powerful and valuable synergies that are in the game, while you can discover the abilities and modifiers that work best for you, or even look up other content creators' guides that go into significantly more detail. And if you find this video to be helpful, or you just want to show support, please consider liking and subscribing, as for a small content creator like me, it really makes all the difference. For each of the archetypes, I'm going to give them a name that I just came up with, and I'm also going to give a difficulty ranking from 1 to 10 on the top right of the screen, where 1 means it's easy to use, and 10 means it's extremely difficult to use, based entirely on my opinion. So consider it more of a suggestion than a law. I will then include a brief description of what it's going to be like to play, and then describe 1 point of strength that only it possesses, as well as provide its greatest weakness. And this weakness will not include movement speed being an issue, because the way the meta is right now, if you're too slow in the dungeon, it doesn't matter who you are or what you have, you're dead. So it could be the weakness for all classes. Now because the fighter is heavily dependent on weapon type, whether it be dual wield, one-handed and shield, one-handed or two-handed, as well as armor type being light, medium and heavy, I'm also going to include which ones will synergize directly with the archetype. And your secondary weapon should almost always be a ranged weapon, but you're going to have to find what works best for you. Now with no further ado, let's begin. Quick Draw Crusher. Difficulty 8. Skills, Adrenaline Rush and Breakthrough. Weapon type, two-handed. Armor type, medium. Perks, Projectile Resistance and Swift. This archetype takes full advantage of the most underrated advantage of Breakthrough, and that is that it allows you to ignore the slow effect of getting hit by your enemy. You don't draw your weapon until you're just about to engage in melee, activating both abilities, then using the action speed of Adrenaline Rush to spring your weapon directly into your hand. Then you launch a devastating two-handed attack and jump back away from your enemy to make space. Now this seems like business as usual against your opponent. You hit them and they hit you. But as they try to line up their second swing, you've already moved back out of reach because you are not slowed by their hit on you. Now if you have a Halberd or a Bardiche, they're positioned perfectly in your kill zone while you stay just out of reach. Its greatest strength? It keeps maximum move speed up for as long as possible. Its greatest weakness is if you let your enemy in too close before you land your first hit. The Retaliator. Difficulty 5. Skills, Adrenaline Rush and Perfect Block. Weapon type, one-handed and shield. Armor, light. Perks, Counterattack and Shield Master. Using the 10% move speed you get from blocking enemies' ranged attacks, you pull up and drop your shield to create a makeshift sprint. Then when you close with your enemy and activate both your abilities, Adrenaline Rush will help you be able to swing and still have enough time to pull a larger shield like the heat your shield up for a block. Once you land your block, you unleash the fastest combo the world has ever seen, taking full advantage of your enemy's long recovery time after colliding with your shield. For a little perspective, your first attack will have plus 75% attack speed. Now that's fast. Its greatest strength is it takes maximum advantage of additional true damage built into your kit. Its greatest weakness is if your enemy can get their attack past your shield and you don't get your block. Frenzied Duelist. Difficulty 6. Skills, Adrenaline Rush, and Second Wind. Weapon type, one-handed, no shield. Armor, medium. Perks, combo attack, and swift. Invisibility potions are the name of your game. If you aren't chipping your enemy with your bow, you're staging an area for an unsuspecting prey to enter. When you burst out of invisibility, you activate Adrenaline Rush and Second Wind and become a landmine to end all landmines. As you have minimal move speed reduction, having only one weapon, and your attacks will be lightning fast, and any retaliation that they may be able to muster is going to be mitigated. Your greatest strength is intense short-term hit trading potential. Your greatest weakness is that chasing opponents is not really an option. The Blocking Bully. Difficulty 8. Skills, Adrenaline Rush and Shield Slam. Weapon type, one-handed and shield. Armor type, light. Perks, counterattack, and shield mastery. This is a hyper-aggressive, hyper-precise, buckler-centric archetype. You want to open your fight trying to shield slam through the enemy's weapon and into their face. This will not only deal damage, but activate your perks, giving you incredible follow-up damage. You're just a flurry of blows, stuffing your opponent and dashing them to ribbons. Strength will capitalize the most from the buckler's high block power. Weakness, how hard it is to land the shield slam across your enemy's weapon. It'll take a lot of practice. The Rush Slayer. Difficulty 2. Skills, Adrenaline Rush and Sprint. Weapon type, dual wield. Armor, light. Perks, Slayer and dual wield. In this archetype, you trade range attacks with your opponent until you think they're low enough to burst down. Although you're fragile, you have incredible speed to take the choice moment to close the gap, and when you arrive, you unleash a flurry of high damage blows to erase your enemy. Its greatest strength is high control over when and where you fight. Its greatest weakness is it's very fragile. The Bruiser. Difficulty 6. Skills, Adrenaline Rush and Taunt. Weapon type, two-handed. Armor, medium. Perks, swift, and combo attack. This archetype is a brass-balled trading machine. You're here for a good time, not a long time. You max out your resistance while you go in to start a hard-hitting, earth-shattering combo attack. Taunting and pulling out your weapon at the last second are going to yield you the best results, or depending on your team to buff your speed so that you can close that gap. Its strength, simple combat technique that lets you focus on landing your headshots. Its greatest weakness is, you're all in, for better or for worse whenever you engage. Victory Rush. Difficulty 4. Skills, Adrenaline Rush and Victory Strike. Weapon type, two-handed. Armor, light. Perks, Adrenaline Spike, and projectile resistance. Using a belt full of Franciscas and Adrenaline Rush, you bring your enemy to a grinding halt as you rush up behind them. Upon closing the gap, with their health low, you brandish a glowing weapon that smites your enemy before you, healing you for a good amount of health along the way. You are the inevitable. You are the victorious. Its strength is massive single target damage, supported by attack speed as well. Its weakness is reliance on consumables to close the gap. Lockdown Duelist. Difficulty 8. Skills, breakthrough, and perfect block. Weapon type, one-handed and shield, or longsword. Armor type, light. Perks, counterattack, and sword mastery. This archetype works with one-handed and shield, but begs for a longsword. Breakthrough gives you the freedom to reposition if you're unable to land the block with your longsword, and a perfect block causes your enemy to enter a stunned animation for a brief time, leaving them wide open for your devastating riposte. Even the feared war maul will stop to your blade. Strength, extreme close quarters combat control. Weakness, long-ranged combat. The Juggernaught. Difficulty 1. Skills, breakthrough, and second wind. Weapon type, one-handed weapon. Armor, heavy. Perks, swift, and defense mastery. You go where you want, healing and swinging where you please. You do not dabble in the fine arts, you simply push in. This archetype waits for its time to shine for the exact moment it can create an immense amount of pressure on the enemy's formation. Given your combat has such limited mobility, you will need to master ranged combat and or have solid team support for other combat roles. Its strength is forcing apart the enemy's formation. Its weakness is very low mobility. The Bumper Knight. Difficulty 2. Skills, breakthrough, and shield slam. Weapon type, one-handed and shield. Armor, medium. Perks are counterattack and shield mastery. This fighter is all about pushing your enemies around and disrupting their plans. Breakthrough will make you more maneuverable after getting hit in melee, and having not only the ability to block, but also displace your enemy makes your combat a lot more tactical and less brutish. It excels to even greater heights if you can master the shield riposte technique. If you plan on practicing with the shield riposte technique, I suggest you practice with the perk Barricade on, as it helps mitigate your failures. Its greatest strength, many tools to control the flow of the fight. Its greatest weakness, terrible at chasing down enemies. The Charger. Difficulty, 1. Skills, breakthrough, and sprint. Weapon type, sword and shield. Armor, heavy. Perks, defense mastery, swift, and projectile resistance. You do exactly what it says on the tin. You strike into the heart of the enemy when you think the time is right, and nothing and no one can slow you down or move your advance. This is perfect for pesky wizard fireballs, Ranger's forceful shots, and the bear's melee strikes. You can not only get where you want to go, but you can do it fast, and no one can redirect your purpose. I suggest you build magic healing and depend on high quality healing potions and protection potions to enhance your staying power. Its strength is, it can surprise opponents with thinking they can control your advance. Its weakness is it's completely dedicated to any offensive maneuver. The Halberdier. Difficulty, 6. Skills, breakthrough, and taunt. Weapon type, two-handed. Armor type, medium. Perks, swift, projectile resistance, and adrenaline spike. I know this archetype has a weapon in its name, but that's only for how well it's adapted to it. Really, any two-hander with a massive slow effect on hit will work. This archetype has a mix of high damage hits, suspiciously high damage reduction, and unpredictable maneuverability. Breakthrough is not used to charge ranged enemies in this case. It is used to outmaneuver when your enemy hits you in melee, just so that you can bring yourself out of range of their weapon and keep them well within your range. Unlike the quick draw Crusher, you can take a hit or two with this build, enabling you to take the main stage in a fight much more easily. Its strength, a great mix of resilience and spacing control in a fight. Its greatest weakness is trying to close that gap with your enemy. The Inevitable. Difficulty, 8. Skills, breakthrough, and victory strike. Weapon type, two-handed. Armor type, medium. Perks, swift, projectile resistance, and adrenaline spike. You pick an enemy out, and they die. This fighter prefers to push into one squishy target, ending their career. You'll have to master lean back dodges to mitigate damage on your approach, but never crouch, never yield, and at the last second draw your chosen delivery method and rule them low. After their execution, you'll need to reposition to recover and do it all over again later. Its strength punishes enemies for not being aware of Breakthrough's existence. Its weakness, you're going to need to reset after every push. The Tar Pit. Difficulty, 5. Skills, perfect block, and second wind. Weapon type, one-handed and shield. Armor type, light. Perks, shield mastery, and counterattack. This archetype and the Lantern Shield go together like fine wine and cheese. Your goal is to waste their time and punish them harder than they can give it to you. Preferring to sustain yourself over kill your enemy, you win through a prolonged attrition, retaliating when you land a perfect block and force your enemy into a stun animation. Light armor keeps you mobile and keen, and second wind lets you recover from any small hits you might take during your dance. Strength shuts down many weapon types that struggle to get around shields. Weakness, it takes you a long time to kill your enemy. The Shield Master. Difficulty, 10. Skills, perfect block, and shield slam. Weapon type, one-handed and shield. Armor type, light. Perks, shield mastery, and counterattack. You are the terror of all that swings a melee weapon. You swap between locking down your enemy's animations with perfect block, into shield slamming them with your weapon back into their face, to landing a shield riposte. This archetype beckons only the most talented and capable of fighters, but for those who can master the timing and techniques, you'll stuff anyone who attempts to fight you. Strength, it's capable of being shielded during all attack animations, whether it be stun lock, shield slam, or shield riposte. Weakness, extremely high skill required to use. Stun Runner. Difficulty, 4. Skills, perfect block, and sprint. Weapon type, one-handed and shield. Armor type, medium. Perks, counterattack, and shield mastery. You're always watching and waiting for the perfect chance to catch your enemy flat-footed, waiting for the right moment to sprint in and force them to swing at you in a panic. When they're hit with the stun effect of the perfect block, you cut into them with all you have, preferably taking a very short-ranged weapon to force them into their sour spot for the rest of the fight, like a dagger or a rapier. Strength, high control over your engagement. Weakness, only really works if your enemy swings at you in melee. The Perfect Taunt. Difficulty, 2. Skills, perfect block, and taunt. Weapon type, anything that can block. Armor type, medium. Perks, adrenaline spike, and barricade. In this archetype, the perfect block is not entirely necessary to land. All you need to do is have your weapon to defend your face, forcing your enemy to hit your legs or body. You will likely want something that can swing quickly though, or utilize the shield's riposte effect to its fullest with a slow swinging weapon to optimize your block frames before a swing. So every time the enemy swings, you force them to hit you in a location that does less damage, and then you return with a strike aimed straight at their head. Between Taunt and Barricade, when their strikes land, they'll deal extremely low damage to you. Strength, you don't need to land the perfect block to mitigate a lot of damage. Weakness, ranged enemies. The Punisher. Difficulty, 6. Skills, Perfect Block and Victory Strike. Preferred weapon, anything that can block, especially the longsword. Armor, light or medium. Perks, Counterattack and Shield Mastery. This archetype is all about the riposte. No matter if you do the shield riposte technique, or use the longsword, or get good enough to land a block with the bardiche, you're going to lock your enemy up in a block stun and punish with incredible ferocity. Not even a barbarian can ignore a victory strike riposte from a longsword. Strength, unparalleled riposte damage. Weakness, you need to be able to land the block. Boxer. Difficulty, 4. Skills, Second Wind and Shield Slam. Weapon type, one-handed and shield. Armor type, medium. Perks, Shield Mastery, and Counterattack. This archetype wants to fight multiple rounds with their opponent, watching their spacing until they can close and land a hit, then deny their enemy a return by shield slamming them away, or by opening with an aggressive cross attack with a shield slam, blocking their attack and hitting them at the same time. You only want to out-trade your opponent in short melee exchanges, and utilizing the Second Wind perk to its fullest by having small breaks between the carnage. Strength, controls another melee opponent. Weakness, high burst sustained melee attackers are going to be able to take you down. The Generalist, aka the Classic. Difficulty, 1. Skills, Second Wind and Sprint. Weapons, any. Armor, any. And perks, any. This is the age-old classic archetype. It doesn't do anything specific. It gives you enhanced mobility on demand and gives you extra hit points on demand. It is helpful in most situations, but does not lend itself to any particular fighting style. Its greatest strength is it's highly adaptable. Its weakness is it's very predictable. The Bulldozer. Difficulty, 1. Skills, Second Wind and Taunt. Weapon type, any two-handed. Armor type, medium. Perks, Swift and projectile resistance. In this archetype, you push head-on into your enemy, soaking hits with reckless abandon before delivering your payload directly to their forehead. In effect, you're a PDR barbarian that's easy to support. And because you depend on your physical damage reduction to sustain you, it's much easier for a friendly cleric to keep your health topped up. Unlike a barbarian though, you'll be able to take advantage of invisibility potions to ambush pesky kiting classes. Strength, easy to heal during combat. Weakness, closing with a kiting enemy. The Skirmisher. Difficulty, 8. Skills, Second Wind and Victory Strike. Weapon type, two-handed. Armor type, light. Perks, projectile resistance. In this archetype, you want to hit your enemy once with a high damage strike with Victory Strike, all while you're harassing them with ranged attacks in between. You never want to overextend yourself and risk getting caught. Building high resourcefulness will help you keep your Victory Strike windows frequent, and having a longer ranged weapon like a halberd or a bardiche, as well as a bow to keep the pressure on between assaults, is going to let you strike from the safest range while keeping them away from you. Strength, easy health recovery in all stages of the fight. Weakness, if you overextend yourself and get caught in sustained hits. Shield Spacer. Difficulty, 3. Skills, Shield Slam and Sprint. Preferred weapon, one-handed and shield. Armor, medium. Perks, Adrenaline Spike and Weapon Mastery. This is the only fighter archetype that primarily uses a bow. Instead of relying on dark corridors and traps to keep your spacing with your enemies like a ranger, you quickly swap to your shield and weapon, punch them into the face, and this applies a slow and pushes them back, then sprint back, turning and firing constant volleys at your enemy. High resourcefulness will dramatically increase your survivability. Strength, you can't get hurt if you can't get caught. Weakness, if you make a mistake, you get caught. War Turtle. Difficulty, 7. Skills, Shield Slam and Taunt. Weapon type, one-handed and shield. Armor, medium. Perks, Shield Mastery, Counterattack, and Combo Attack. This archetype can be used with any shield, but the Lantern Shield is where it shines, literally and figuratively. You use Taunt and step into your enemies, aiming to bounce your shield off of their weapon, and potentially triggering the Lantern Shield's riposte. I'm not sure if that works or not, but if that did work, that would be one of the most insane flurries of blows in the game. Talk about utilizing your true damage. Strength, aggressive, high DPS engagement. Weakness, extremely dedicated to the attack and melee. The 1-2 combo. Difficulty, 7. Skills, Shield Slam and Victory Strike. Preferred weapon, one-handed and shield. Armor, medium or light. Perks, Swift. This fighter runs a 1-2 combo that will frustrate your enemy and deal massive damage. You need to space them out and wait for the right opportunity. Then you jump in, land the Victory Strike with your main hand, then following up with a Shield Slam to push them out of range to strike back at you, and potentially block any retaliating strike they might have already had on the go. This lets you dive in and out, taking large chunks out of your enemy, while taking very little risk for yourself. Its strength, it does not trade hits when engaging. Its weakness, cutthroat rogues. The Diver. Difficulty 1. Skills, Sprint and Taunt. Weapon type, one-handed and shield. Armor type, heavy. Perks, Swift and Defense Mastery. This one also does exactly what you'd think it would do. You dive headfirst into your enemy as fast as you can, swinging for the fences with reckless abandon, and if things turn south, you can raise your shield and bow to the fight, taking a break to heal and let your cooldowns reset. This isn't rocket science here. Be tough and run at them fast. Strength, incredible pushing power. Weakness, getting crowd controlled on your approach. Swift Striker. Difficulty 2. Skills, Sprint and Victory Strike. Weapon type, two-handed. Armor, medium. Perks, projectile resistance, and swift. When fighting with this archetype, you act like a trap ready to be sprung, luring in your enemy to somewhere you can close the gap. Maybe when you step around the corner, or if they just get themselves into the middle of the room where they can't make it to a door. Then you activate your abilities and deliver a blow so quickly their ancestry will feel it. If your enemy still has some hit points left, feel free to follow up with an extra attack, or circle back and continue using your ranged attacks to finish them off. You are agile, and can be very suddenly lethal. Its strength is its unpredictable burst damage. Its weakness is any sustained fighting. Last but not least, we have the Legend. Difficulty 9. Skills, Taunt and Victory Strike. Weapon type, dual wield. Armor type, medium. Perks, Slayer and dual wield. This archetype is not for the faint of heart. You need to keep a cool head when the metal meets flesh. You step into your enemies boldly with Taunt activated, trading and dodging hits until you believe the time is right. Then you need the planning and the clear mind to activate Victory Strike and claim their hit points for your own. I imagine that if you were running a Castillon Dagger and a Falchion, this would work great. You swing out the full 3-hit combo on the Castillon, and you finish up with the Victory Strike Falchion to kill your enemy. Or even a Warhammer to increase your overall armor pen with all of your strikes. Its strength is it naturally recovers hit points when winning a fight. Its weakness is you need the clarity of mind to execute such a bold plan, and it's not that easy to master. And that's all the fighter archetypes available in Dark and Darker at this time. There's a lot more possibilities with fighter than you'd think, eh? On a closing note, if you like the content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It's something that really helps me out, especially considering I'm a small channel. And let me know in the comments below if you want to see the rest of the classes. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Until next time, peace.